So today's episode is going to be shot completely on the Sigma 10-18 F2.8, which is the only other wide angle I'd really recommend on the Fuji ecosystem for content creators for video specifically. Oops, let's turn that down. And I'm making this video because I didn't see one geared specifically towards people who just wanted to use it for making videos, like yours truly. Let's just watch for some cars here. And I'm also testing out this stupid suction cup to see what the load-bearing weight is for another video later at a different date for action cameras. But fun fact, that suction cup will not stick if you do not clean your car, and we got pollen all over the place for weeks, and I haven't had a car wash in a very long time, so there's a weird look from someone there. How's it going? I love it. And right now I finished up a photo shoot. I'm gonna put a bunch of stuff back in storage because I don't like keeping C-stands at home. Now, in the past, I tried third-party lenses on the Fujifilm cameras, like the X-T3 being my main camera. And the problem with them was that it was good for photos. They were all good for photos, but when it came to video, the autofocus was not responsive to the different adjustment levels of Fujifilm autofocus. So it didn't respect any inputs when it came to adjusting autofocus speed, tracking, those settings, which if you want to go autofocus on the older Fujifilm cameras, you essentially had to, honestly, like, why park literally in the line of sight here? People here, I swear to God. As you can see, it's already a great lens to catch you ranting. If ranting in your car is the kind of content you like doing, it's great. It manages to capture the whole environment. My God, there we go. So yeah. And that was the big problem with the older Fujifilm cameras, X-T3, X-T4. So for me, because I'm a video first guy, I know my name is Omar Knows Photo. That's just my business name. And I've been thinking about changing it for a while. Anyway. But because it didn't respond to those settings, and because Fujifilm traditionally didn't have the set it and forget it autofocus that Canon and Sony had for so many years, I just ended up not doing the third-party lenses and just went native all the time. Wow, this Pro Mist filter, not very forgiving on a day like today. Now, of course, with the latest generation, the Fujifilm X-T5 and the X-H2S that I'm recording this on right now, the autofocus is really good right out the box. This video is going up regardless of whether I'm in focus or not, and right now I've got it on head and eye autofocus. Obviously, this angle here is from the side. This is going to be one of the more challenging things for it to stay focused on, especially when I have a super bright background. Like, I'm purposely aiming it towards the sun and putting it through an ND and a Pro Mist filter because that makes it really hard for the camera to autofocus. Those are the most challenging conditions typically that are counting, like not tracking forward and back. Like, this is also historically one of the more difficult tests for most cameras. And I'm willing to bet that it's really good because I've been shooting with this thing for about 2 weeks now, and I think for the most part, had this come out at the same time as the Mark II version of the Fuji 10-24, which is a phenomenal lens, I say that word a lot, I'm trying to move away from it a bit, but which is a really good lens in general. It's their 15 to 35 full frame equivalent. I would have just gotten this because most of us, we get the ultra wides not for photos but for videos, talking heads at your desk, blogs, vlogs, whatever the case is, digital content. This one is a smidge faster at f2.8 instead of f4, and that does make a difference because I shoot commercially. One of the interview lenses I use is the Canon RF 15 to 35 f2.8, and that's just like the subject separation. Even when you're, hold on, I'm way too blown out here. Holy crap, I am hella blown out here. But the subject separation on that camera lens combo is just so good. And you get really close to it with this one on the Fuji 10-24 f4. Not that it matters, but you get almost none. Like, it could be a newer generation GoPro with a really good lighting would probably give you, for people who don't know, a pretty similar image quality, which is fine. But I shoot mostly on this because I prefer having a proper camera, since I'm just accustomed to shooting on proper cameras with specific shutter speeds, and obviously all my ND system stuff is tied to this. Buddy, this is hour go. Let's go. Jesus. And on top of that, this lens is smaller, it's lighter. You don't get to the 24, it's a 10-18 instead of a 10-24. I think most people who buy these lenses use them to shoot themselves or to shoot maybe street or landscape for photography. And the 10-18 is plenty, unless you really, really, really like that 35mm full frame focal length, which I don't care for when it comes to. Holy crap, I'm blowing out. Hold on, let me try to just increase that shutter a bit. We are breaking that 180 shutter rule. Enjoy. In traffic. And for those people, I think this lens is still a pretty good option because it's about 2/3 of the price of the Mark II 10-24 Fuji f4, and it's a stop faster. But something I didn't hear too much of, and I had to confirm because I saw the gasket and I didn't see anything else that was really sealed, is that this lens is not weather sealed, it's weather resistant. So at the mounting point, there's a gasket. There's no other sealing anywhere else on the lens. So if you go from a really cold environment to a really hot one really quick, if you are somewhere that's very hazy, if you get caught in the rain, there's a chance that you could get it's a pretty good chance of getting a lot of moisture in the internal elements and just not being able to use the lens for a little bit. Over time, it could build out fungus. And most people, if you use it indoors, if you don't really shoot in inclement weather or travel with a camera in inclement weather, this is not a concern for you, but it is a concern for me. And if there was one thing that I would say was negative about the lens, I would say that is the thing. The fact that it's not fully weather sealed, but at the price point and what you get, and again, I got this for talking heads at my desk, I can live with it. I can live with it, and I haven't heard anyone really complain about it. I think this lens has been out for 6 months or 8 months at this point, so maybe I'm just overstating it, but it's something I am going to mention because, you know, you're paying a couple $100s for a lens. You want to know when you can and when you can't use it. The other thing that's really nice about it that I touched on earlier is that it's really light. Not that the 10-24 is heavy, but the Canon 15-35 2.8 is just, it's a bulky monster, man. It is not a light lens by any standard. Thanks for being with me in traffic. It gives me something to do. It's the middle of October, but I'm already starting to sweat just from sitting in the sun here. Because of that smaller size, not just the weight, but also the actual length of the lens itself, it makes it easy to kind of one lens anything, to keep it in your backpack. I like wrapping things up in a little soft pad. It also makes it very easy to hang up, like on the suction cup. I'm using the suction cup mount in the car. And because the overall package is very light, I can use a cheap $30 or $40 suction cup that's mounted questionably on a windshield that I haven't cleaned in maybe a good 8 months or so, and not be too concerned about it. Not be too concerned, but I'm actually gonna make sure that it's not releasing air. Nope, still good. Look at that. Look at how cinematic that looks. Jesus. But I've been spoiled by the X-H2S's open gate and the 6.2K, and I really like it. Typically, if I have to shoot video, I'll shoot it like on my phone or something when I'm on the go, but if I have my X-H2S and my photo lens, which will be the 16-55, the Mark I by the time this video comes out, I have no reason to buy the Mark II. I can have this as my dedicated video lens and just have my photo lens in the backpack, and I'm good with those two lenses. I might start walking around just with this one to see how I feel about taking wide shots. If you like taking wide shots, you'll be fine. I personally I like 50mm or more. That's a personal thing. I don't like having my entire body blown out by the sun, but that's a midday sun thing. Sorry, y'all. Thanks for tolerating it in this video. Can I darken this a little more? Yeah, there we go. I'm an idiot. Yeah, overall, I think I shot the last 2 episodes. No, I didn't have this when I released my Fujifilm Super Review, which if you haven't seen it, I'll link it in a card above. But I reviewed all my Fujifilm gear, and that's pretty much every piece of Fujifilm equipment that's come out since 2018, except the 18mm F2, which is just a horrible lens, sorry. And the 14-2.8, I did not. That's another like first gen lens. And I think I spoke about, but I no longer own the 56 1.2 and the 5140. But if you're interested in finding out what my thoughts were on the Fuji X system and on each and every individual piece of equipment, definitely check out that video. I kind of wish I had this lens just for the size comparison, and I think I'll just throw some B-roll over at some point here so you can see the difference between this and the Fuji 10-24, which is going to be, that's going to be the other competitor, unless you go with the Mark 1 that's not weather sealed, which I guess that would be more of an equivalent here, since this isn't really weather sealed either. All right, hang on one second. I gotta go see if I can grab one of these carts before someone else decides to sit on one for 6 hours. See you in a second. We'll talk about some of the camera stuff, I guess, while I'm doing this. This is a counterweight. Actually beats sandbags if you're trying to have a counterweight on a strobe up in the air. See what else I gotta unpack from here. Oh yeah, okay, so one thing worth noting. The focus ring is on the inside, it's towards the camera body, so every now and then, if you're not careful, your thumb will actually hit it. And unless you turn like the manual focus adjustment off, you could technically be out of focus for a little too long like this until you hit the autofocus button back. So just be wary of that. If you're a person like me, like I typically hold from the camera body or from the lens, but for this, it's just not gonna happen for this one. Sandbag number 1, which I will use as a temporary tripod. You know, sandbags, backpacks, any kind of bag is typically a pretty good tripod. We good? Nope. All right, this is gonna be the best angle I get here. Turtle-based C-stand. I feel like this is everyone's first non-camera or direct camera purchase. Another piece of the C-stand. Let's put this guy right here. So this is worth talking about, and let me know if you want to see a video with this stuff, like me actually doing work with it. This normally comes with a C-stand. It's like the arm, and this is the little, I forgot what these were called, but this is what you want to clamp your lights onto. You don't want to put it on this end here, even though everyone starts off doing that. Horrible idea. And this is a boom. Technically like a mini boom. I think this one is 6 or 8 feet. You can hang a sandbag off to counterweight. You can put those metal weights you saw earlier. This is just to adjust like where the fulcrum, the middle point is. And then you can extend your light out, and that's what allows you to do like clamshell setups safely. Not cheap, but not an expensive piece of equipment. It is specialized for sure. I think this Coupe model was like 150 bucks or so. But something, if you like doing portraits, this is a really good investment, and it opens up a lot of creative liberties when it comes to your lighting setups, especially if you're doing a 2-light setup. Should probably move this camera in a second. Nope, we're good. And one of the 4,000 diffusers I've accumulated over the years. This guy here. Video is my bread and butter, but I love photography so much. Alrighty, you're coming with me in my storage unit. A little bump. Come on, buddy. There you go. How's it going? Bro, these places are so expensive for no reason. And they keep raising the private equity ruins everything. I've had this place for like 6 or 7 months, and they've raised my rent from $225 to, with taxes and everything, like $375 now. It's a little wild. There are my lights. Okay. Ugh. I am gonna be putting everything away for a minute, and then we'll get in the car for some final thoughts. Hey guys, Future Omar here. I forgot to say this. If you're enjoying the video, like, subscribe, notification bell, even though I turn on the notification bell for my friends' channels and I don't get a notification, so I don't know if that's still a thing. But yeah, do those things. And now let's vroom back to the video. I'm gonna put this in the link below just because of what it is. 100-watt PD power charger. That's how I'm gonna just keep this thing perpetually charged if I start doing more of these car vlogs. You know what? So Fujifilm has a firmware update coming soon, but I'm on the firmware that's supposed to have really bad autofocus, and this is like, check out this Kofia, but this is like my third or fourth video on this firmware, and I haven't really noticed any autofocus issues. And I don't know any stock in Fujifilm. I hate all corporations as it is. So I am not a fan of anyone whose primary purpose is to milk as much money from you as possible. But I feel like I'm not a special case, and either people are complaining a little too much about it these days, or it's like the Ford Pinto effect, where they just had the reputation of bad autofocus for so long, and now they just can't escape it. This also may or may not be an illegal left turn. You know the other great thing about an ultra-wide like this is? It makes your muscles look huge and you look a little thinner. So maybe I'll skip cardio. No, I won't be skipping the gym tonight, but yeah, as far as perspective goes, I'm in a 2014 Toyota Prius C, and this is a small car. So you can see that I've got plenty of space here if I wanted to kind of like, I don't know, bring something up to the camera or something. I've got a lot of leeway to do it. Close focusing distance on this is pretty good. That's what I get for not paying attention. And it really does, any ultra wide, even if you get the Fuji 10-24, the first gen, you don't need the weather sealing, because again, this one is not weather sealed, but it is weather resistant. If you're shooting out in the Arctic weathers, the Fuji 10-24 Mark I, don't do it. It will fog up on you. It did on me, and I was in Virginia. It wasn't even that cold. This one, I'm not sure. I think your camera body will be safe at the mount, so your sensor will be safe, but there's nothing for the internal glass elements or the front elements other than if you put an ND or UV filter on or whatever. This doesn't zoom internally, so there's going to be an entry point for moisture through that little tube that extends, for sure. Probably for most people, not a big deal. I just like mentioning it because it's an option that I personally weighed before buying this. Everything you ever see me review, I buy myself. So I have absolutely no obligation to say anything is good unless it's actually good. And if I ever get to the point on this channel where sponsors send me things to review, you can bet I'm gonna roast the hell out of anyone that dares to release a bad product to the masses. Holy crap, I was just blinded for a second. I don't know what the hell that was, but we'll see if we caught that on camera. Image quality, obviously it's fine. Matter of fact, I wouldn't mind if it were a little worse, so it would be a little more flattering, but I guess that's gonna be a reason why I go to the gym tonight. You know, it's so funny with gear review nowadays. When you do this professionally, when you do this stuff for a living, you're always looking at how this stacks up against other professional equipment. And I forget that you don't always need, like, equipment is so good nowadays, it's really hard to segment things into consumer and prosumer and professional gear, unless we're talking about like cinema lenses or something. And when you've been doing this for so many years, I've been a production artist now for just a little under 10 years. June 2025 will be officially 10 years, which is crazy to even think about. But you tend to lose perspective on what's good enough, especially when you're looking at all these YouTube reviews and you're constantly bombarded with ads and new iterations of the same lenses. This is, in the United States, this is a $600 lens, and the value proposition for a $600 ultra-wide zoom at an f2.8 aperture with good image quality and relatively low distortion and everything. Let's go, buddy. Sorry about that. Is the value proposition on this thing is really high for 600 bucks. The last time, the only other 10-18 that I loved, I adored, was the one on my original Canon 70D, which I think at the wide end it was like a 4.5, but that was like the OG vlogging lens for anyone who's had a 70D at one point. It's still a pretty good lens. And fun fact, if you mount that on the Canon full frame R system with the adapter, and you don't go into Super 35 mode, you can actually get a full frame 12.5 13mm field of view with that, with no vignetting or anything, which is incredible. And you can find those lenses for like $100. I get derailed a little too easily, but this one at $600 is like the value proposition through the roof. If someone were to ask me about the best X-mount ultra-wide nowadays, and at this point I've used all of them, except for the Prime, the Fuji 8mm 3.5, this would be my recommendation. And it's not that I'm a snob, I just generally don't like third-party lenses, but they did a really good job on this lens. I know, look, you can say what you want, but video is harder. It's much harder for a lens to be a good video lens than it is to be a good photo lens. And this one is great at both. Again, I don't really care for ultra wide photos or anything, although if I were going somewhere for like landscapes, yeah, I would definitely take this over the 10-24 as long as the weather wasn't horrible. Yeah, people, I wish I could turn this around right now. People have absolutely no idea how to drive here. It's crazy. I could see myself using this lens for thumbnails. I could see myself using it for overhead shots. And what's funny is because it's physically smaller than the 10-24, it's not that you get a wider field of view, it's just that if you're pressed up against the wall, it is a wider lens simply because the optics are physically further back compared to the 10-24. So you can't say that it's a wider lens, but it is a wider lens. I should take some B-roll. I said I wasn't gonna do any B-roll of this lens, but I know that the size comparison at least will be very helpful to visualize this. And that matters when you're in a tight spot. And I imagine a lot of people who buy this to do talking head videos at home, you don't have those 4 or 5 foot desks. You probably have like a 24-inch to maybe 36-inch desk, maybe a little less. And any extra space you have on the wide end makes a pretty big difference. And this is no exception. So this lens on my desk is technically wider than the 10-24, and that in itself is pretty valuable, especially when it comes to recomposing. And it gives you a little leeway for zooming in as well. Obviously you see at 10mm, everything is really distorted, but if I do like one of these, like this is at the 18mm end. It's pretty good. I could probably, honestly, I probably could have mounted it out there and zoomed in a little more, but that, when you buy a fast lens, you're gonna shoot at the widest aperture. When you buy like an ultra wide, you're probably gonna be at the widest end the whole time. But it's good to know that you have this. This is an available option. This one probably would have been a little better for me to do that last segment in, but why not leave it wide open? Oh, look at that, it's hunting. No, it's not. I saw that though. You saw that, right? We all saw that. Okay, now I actually have to go in and do a client edit so I can have some semblance of a weekend. So let me know what your thoughts are on the lens. Let me know if there's something I didn't cover. And as always, new episode every Wednesday. I'll catch you at the next one. See ya.